I grew up very poor, South Louisiana, in and out of trailer parks, 11 custody court battles, violence, 2 house fires, no understanding of finance or wealth, and build the life that I want. If you don't think you're gonna go bankrupt about every 4 years, you're not doing shit anyway.
Obviously, you've had this great career. People don't really know you from that. People know you from going on YouTube and other platforms and giving advice to young men. Are you married now?
I would never bring the state into my affairs. I don't chase women, Michael. I absorb them. I love women. Let me be very clear about this.
But
and in fact, I have quite the reputation for loving them a bit too much.
yeah.
And my wife helps, by the way.
Wait, your wife helps?
We got girlfriends, G.
Really?
Yeah, man. I am not promoting this.
I guess that, to me, that's the most interesting thing you're saying.
I am not.
If it's good for you, why is it not good for some other guy? Even in our confused age, I am a man. I'm reasonably certain I'm a man. I have 3 little boys, very virile household. I have male friends, and yet we have a crisis of masculinity in our culture. Most people don't even know what a man is. We certainly don't know what a woman is. So I've brought in an expert who gives young men advice all the time. That would be Justin Waller. Justin, thank you for coming in.
Very glad to be here. Very glad to be here.
I know you're a cigar guy.
I am.
I have brought my own cigars here, Mayflower. This is the Mayflower Dusk. Oh, I know you'll give me your totally honest opinion anyway. You give very brutal advice as you see it all the time. So I'm curious to hear what you think. I got the cutter here. I guess we should give the audience a little bit of background. I've been sleeping in a hospital room for 2 nights now.
You have. Discuss this.
Yes, I'm going to be speaking in cursive probably throughout this interview, not just because of the booze, but because I'm underslept. So this is actually the perfect long-form conversation to follow the birth of my 3rd son. Before we get to all of your advice, do you have a cut? There you are. Before we get to all of your advice, I want to get to an important question, which is, why the hell should anybody listen to your advice? Who are you that you're giving people advice?
That's a great question. I get stopped every day by a young man that tells me that it changed his life. And unlike an athlete or a movie star, I actually had a woman tell me this on the street in LA. She said, you know the difference between you and other people I see get stopped is that it matters to them. And my favorite thing to say to these young men when they stop me is that me and you are no different. I was you 15 years ago. And I think that's very important. A lot of people online couldn't imagine being the people they look up to. For whatever reason, that person casts himself in a way that makes the people that follow that person feel like it would be impossible. They have too many things that God gave to them. I grew up very poor, South Louisiana, in and out of trailer parks, 11 custody court battles, violence, 2 house fires, no understanding of finance or wealth. And I was able to find the people that I align with, either in books, online, at events, conferences, and build the life that I want. But I am no different from them.
Of all those challenges, impoverished area, trailer parks, custody battles, no one to look up to, which was the biggest challenge?
Finding the consciousness to see outside of what was just directly in front of me.
Okay.
So many people, they have 1 or 2 decisions to make in life if they grow up in that kind of situation. 1, they become it. 2, they decide they're going to be everything but that. Mine was the latter. I chose to use sports to get out of my town because I certainly would have been working in the plants on the Mississippi River right now had I taken the path of everyone else, because that would have been the highest level I could have got in that area, in my opinion. And so I wanted to leave. The only thing I knew at the time, the only consciousness I had at that time was to go play college football, get a college degree, and then maybe, if I worked hard enough, I would get a job in Dallas as a project manager. I'd make 150 grand a year maybe, and live in a house that didn't have wheels on it, which was, in the very beginning, one of my main goals. I'm gonna live in a big house that is brick one day. and I'm going to have a truck allowance and a 401k because I didn't know any better. It was the only consciousness I had.
That's a good life, too.
It is a good life until you get more consciousness. And isn't that the tricky part of the torture? I always say the voice in your head that tortures you is the voice that makes you great. So the more I learn and the more I'm exposed to, the more I'm tortured to push forward and do more things. And to be quite honest with you, my biggest fear in life right now is losing that voice in my head that says, no, you should do more, more, more. No matter what I do, that voice is there. And I think it's the greatest gift you could ever receive. I think that voice comes from some version of your inner consciousness or God that tells you what you should be doing and what you could do and what's possible for you.
There's a big difference between those two possibilities. Is the voice coming from you, or is the voice coming from God, who is outside of you?
Oh, I think that depends on who you're asking. Nonetheless, it does. The voice is there, and that's a voice you want to keep. So for me, as much as I would like to act like I've achieved everything and I've developed to the place that I'm ultimately going to be, I know that I'll never be happy with it. I'll never retire. I'll never be done. I'll never be satisfied with anything I do. I bought 56 more doors last week. You know, I still feel like I'm behind, and I have over 400 doors. And when I get to 1,000, I'll be mad because I don't have 5,000. And that's just how we are. You have been shooting content all morning. I've been watching you because I was in the dressing room, the lady putting powder all over me and all these things are going on. I'm like, what is this? It's the first time I've ever worn makeup, Michael.
No, really? You
Yeah.
don't wear makeup when you do your videos and interviews?
No, I learned a lot this morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You could say, I just woke up like this. You know, this is.
I should have took that opportunity. But no, it was the powder, right? And I believe that voice in your head that tortures you is the voice that makes you great. And it's the same thing that told you that you have to shoot double time because you have to make it to the hospital to see your son being born. It's the same voice. Where is it coming from? Where do you believe it's coming from? I think could be up for debate depending on the individual. But I do know this, if that voice is lost, you're in deep trouble. I always say that success is a two-way street, or it's a two-part thing. It's climbing the mountain, and it's looking for other mountains to climb. Because if you get to the top of the mountain that you're climbing and you have nowhere to go, all you can do is self-sabotage yourself down.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I empathize even with the drive constantly to be working, because I have that too. And I try to temper that to some degree, because I want to make sure I see my wife and kid, you know, I get to the hospital, I want to make sure that I read, I want to make sure that I have a well-rounded life, because I agree, if you become complacent in your pursuits, you're going to die. But then the reason I ask that question, is the voice just yourself or is the voice God? The reason I ask the question of what was the greatest challenge of the half dozen you mentioned to overcome is because then the question for anyone who's pursuing self-help is, what are you aiming at?
Right.
You understand? I mean, because what you're describing is you grew up in poverty, and you had other conditions that were related to poverty, but weren't necessarily tied to it. The custody battles, the geography of South Louisiana, the not having people in your community who could guide you in your career, whatever. And you say, I've overcome that. Primarily, it would seem in money. You overcame this poverty. You overcame that $150,000 a year ceiling that you thought you'd hit. Now you're making much more money than that. Now you see bigger. So, is it just money?
Absolutely not.
No.
Man, I have the most fulfilling life that anybody could ever ask for. I have one of the best networks, I believe, in the world, with some of the best friends in the world, with the most beautiful family I could ever ask to have, relationships with people I genuinely care about that I get to take care of. Money is just a tool. And I think that's something that's very widely misunderstood about me. Two things that I think are misunderstood about me for the people that don't follow me or don't like me is that they might think I'm materialistic. Bro, I wear Walmart shirts almost every day, black t-shirts. Mm-hmm. Money will never make you happy. Taking care of people you love will make you happy, will make you fulfilled. Getting stopped by a young man, like one of the guys that work for you, He told me backstage, he said, I was going through a very rough time and you helped me out of it. There is nothing in this world that I would trade for that conversation. Money can't buy it. So I don't think it's money. I think it's becoming the vision of yourself that you set out to be. And so for me, I have this relationship, I call it the rocking chair test, where I have this relationship with the older version of me. And I work and answer to that version of myself. So when I'm 90 years old and I can no longer live life, and I'm going through things at 38, am I gonna buy this property? Am I gonna do this deal? Am I gonna invest in this company? I'm scared, what do I do? I simply ask myself, what would he say? What would make him proud of me? Because by the time I get there, I'll look back retrospectively at 38 and be like, that was really not that big a deal. And so my main goal is to make the future version of me proud of who I am right now. And I do that every day. In fact, I keep a folder in my phone of videos where I'm talking to myself so I can go back later and watch myself progress through my life. And it's something I hold very dear to me. It's because ultimately at the end of the day, there's so many people out there that want to make other people happy. I know that if I do everything that I set out to do, not only will I be happy with myself and what I accomplished, I will have taken care of everybody in my life that I care for and love.
But if you do the rocking chair test,
Sure.
if your standard is 90-year-old you, and if you also said you're never going to be happy, you're never going to be satisfied because you're going to want more, and if you have 400 doors, you're going to want 4,000 doors, and if you...
I'll be proud of myself for that.
You'll be proud of yourself for your
That
dissatisfaction,
Yes.
for your lack of happiness.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Don't you find it to be terrifying if I were to tell you, Michael, tomorrow,
Yeah.
you're going to be completely satisfied with your life, so much so that you don't even feel the need to take action any longer.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
That would be dangerous.
And that can happen to a man like you, very successful, money,
Terribly handsome.
time, stunningly handsome, devilishly, and instead, man, it is a dangerous place to be. It's a very dangerous place to be.
The way I see it in my own self-reflection, because I have more money than I planned on having, and I've got more stability somehow until, who knows, I work in political media. The whole thing could fall apart any second.
Watch out.
But, and I've got this great family. You can see I've got my hospital wristband on so I could go back there. So I've got that.
That's bad.
That's great, yeah.
That's better than the watch.
Yeah.
It is better than the watch.
In the long run, this is going to serve
It is
me
better
a lot
than the watch. That child is more of a flex than that watch will ever be.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
1,000%.
But when I could see myself maybe getting complacent with money. I've never primarily chased money. It's nice to have. I'm not, but it's a
Right.
tool, and
It's a game.
it's a game.
It's a game.
I could see myself getting satisfied with money. I could see myself, probably not in my career, I probably still would want more out of politics and media, and more and more and more. But even then, let's say I become president of the United States, and let's say I become emperor of the whole world. Okay, there is no higher political feat to achieve. I guess I'd be satisfied. The thing that I could not be satisfied with is growth in virtue and sanctity, because the standard there is not myself or some other guy, but the standard there is God, and I in a fallen world given to concupiscence, I will never reach that. So there I could see never being satisfied, but growing happier and more flourishing every passing day, so long as I'm moving in the right direction. You understand the distinct, because when people think about self-improvement, self-help, the grind set, often it focuses on earthbound things. But there I think, well, those are all going to die and be corrupted at some point. And you're saying, I'm not a materialist. So then what are we aiming at?
I think you're aiming at making sure that you stay directly in line with everything you set out to do. I'm most happy when I'm doing the things that in my heart, regardless of where that voice comes from, that I know I should be doing, that I'm doing. I am not depressed when I'm doing these things. I'm happy, I'm on a path, I'm climbing, and I'm looking for more things to accomplish. And most importantly, and I think the thing that fulfills me the most, is taking care of the people that I directly care about and love, the people in my family. So my little girls, for example, dude, there's nothing in this world that outside of making sure I don't spoil them too badly. There's nothing in this world that I'm not going to give them. And it's not just monetary. I want to teach them the truth of the world. I want to show them how to be competent in it. And then from there, I just want them to have choice. There is a vision for a day that I'll never see in my life, but it is my most impactful vision of something I want to happen because of the actions I take. There's a table. It has all of my children, maybe 100 of them, but certainly a lot.
Yeah.
Gentleman walks in the room. I'm gone, died days before. And he unloads the trust structure, how I set it all up. And my kids are like, he did what? And he moved it in a trust, and now we don't have to pay tax? I'm gone.
He saved me like 40% on my
Yeah. I'm writing prenuptial agreements for my daughter's husband so they know they don't get Don't forget who the big G is. I might be dead, Michael, but they still have the answer to me. Still.
All right, well, that I guess then brings us to the advice portion here. The advice that you would have for young men, including your future son-in-laws. Because that's really what you're famous for. Obviously you've had this great career in steel and construction, and that's where you made your money. But people don't really know you from that. People know you from going on YouTube and other platforms and giving advice to young men. So then, okay, here we are. There are a lot of young men watching right now. I'm a relatively young man. What's the advice?
Take care of your fitness first.
All right, I'm out. Well, I'm out. I've already lost.
Right.
But at some point, maybe I'll.
But you should.
I should.
Because it's very good for you mentally. It changes how people treat you when you walk in a room. It's only a hobby you can have. You could have money, walk in a room, and nobody know.
Yeah.
You can't ignore being in shape. People see it as discipline. People see it as something that they respect in other people. They assume that you're more intelligent. That's not necessarily true, but a lot of times they do. Not if you're huge, but if you're in good shape, and it shows, I think people respect you in a completely different way. Understand that this life is going to be very, very difficult, and it's not new. It's not new. You think the guys that got drafted into World War II thought that like it was a good situation for them? No, it's not. Guess what? You are going to have to struggle. It's going to be very, very difficult. And you're also in a situation as a young man where all the girls that you like are given their value at the front end of their life.
Yep.
They might not want you right now, which is good for you because you should be putting your head down, working very hard, accepting the fact that it's going to be very, very difficult, because if you get to the end of where you're going and you build yourself into the person that you want to be, the cards are now going to be very, very much stacked in your favor. And I've learned that through my life. When I was younger, I didn't understand why girls wanted older guys. I didn't. But now that I'm an older guy, I certainly understand that everything I did in my 20s, I could not be more proud of the young man that I was when I was in my 20s. I'm super proud of him.
Why?
Dude, I didn't drink. You could not find a bar tab on me in my 20s. Do you know this is the first time I've ever been to Nashville? Ever. You know why? Because every time
of Lower Broadway?
Do what?
Lower Broadway with all the honky-tonks and the bars?
Well, no, I would get invited to bachelor parties, guys trips, and we'll go play golf, and we'll go get drunk in Nashville. No, dude, I was hanging steel all over America. I believed I could be the American dream. And so I set out to do that. And so we hang steel now from California to New York, but I've been invited to Nashville 20, 30 times.
Yep.
Now it's time. I have something to actually do here.
Yep.
And I could not be more proud that I skipped those trips to Nashville. And it's a lovely place. But I'm glad I never came. And it was those types of decisions that I made again and again and again and again, understanding that it was going to be difficult building that steel company. Construction is not an easy business. I don't know if you know this or not, but guys that erect steel are not Boy Scouts. They're not. I'm pulling them out of bars. They're getting drunk. They're fighting in the hotels. They'll make mistakes on the job that'll cost us in cash flow. These things, like, it is a hard business.
Yep.
But if you're a young man and you're setting out on your path and these things are coming towards you, there's a couple things you should remember. Number one is every time you get hit in the face, so is your competition. You're going to quit or they are. Two, that if you can get through those struggles and get hit in the face enough times, you'll eventually start slipping those punches, and that's when you roll over. Just like in the schoolyard, man. You might get hit a couple times, but once you get on top, get your licks in. That day is coming for you. All you have to do is not quit. It's not because I'm smarter. It's because I'm relentless and I just refuse to quit. I should have went bankrupt countless times. I was the other day telling a gentleman on a podcast, I think it was on Iced Coffee Hour. There was a time around 28, 29, I thought I was going to go bankrupt. And I pulled my mentor aside at a conference, the guy I looked up to the most in the steel world. His name's Mike Reynolds. And I said, Mike, I think I'm going to go bankrupt. And I was expecting to get this like touching advice, right? Like he was going to help me. He took a sip of his whiskey. He looked me dead in the eye and he said, son, if you don't think you're going to go bankrupt about every 4 years, you're not doing shit anyway. He slapped me on the shoulder. Yeah, he slapped me on the shoulder, and as he's walking away, and I'm just staring off into the distance, he goes, I'll meet you at the bar. That was one of the most impactful moments of my life because I felt a weight come off of me. Like nothing I could ever imagine. And the reason I felt that weight come off of me is because I was dealing with a lot of self-hate over thinking I was screwing up. I didn't feel like it had to be my fault.
Right.
Which to this day I think is one of the best qualities a young man can have. Because if you don't find
to feel that it's your fault.
it has to be your fault, regardless of the circumstances. Because if you don't find a way to make it your fault, you are forfeiting your right to do anything about it, even if it's somebody else. If I have a guy not show up to a job site and I lose that project or I lose the contract or they supplement my contract, which is even worse, if I don't find a way to say it's on me, then I am going to be at the mercy of whatever that problem is as it continues to come to me. So I'll track that all the way back to my recruiting processes, whatever I have to do in the hiring process to make sure it's my fault. Because if I can make sure it's my fault, I can keep control of it.
Right. Yeah, the buck stops with you. Right. You're the head of the company. So,
and that's accountability.
Yes. The only thing I want to disagree with in all of that is, there are a few other things that I have questions about, but the main one I want to disagree with is, you said women like older men, which is true. There are a lot of women who like older men, especially when the men are more successful and established, but not all women. There's some women who, and maybe most women, who like men their age, you know, certainly in generations past, you think of high school sweethearts, that sort of thing. So, you didn't get married in your 20s?
No.
So you focused on yourself, you're working, you weren't drinking, you were dating in your 20s?
Yes, but I like to call that absorbing women in my 20s.
You'll have to go into that metaphor.
Yeah, well, I still do it that way, but yeah, we'll get into it.
Are you married now? If I ask anything too personal, you don't have to answer, of course.
I have a family. I would never bring the state into my affairs, but I do have a family that I love very much. A lot of people, when they comment negative about me online, they'll say, oh, he doesn't know anything about this, and this. He doesn't even, dude, if you saw my family, if I opened up that part of my life to social media, people would lose their mind. I have the most beautiful family life anybody could ever ask for. But I'm a very lucky man.
And I think there's something admirable about not
it's none of
opening
their
up
damn
your whole life.
business.
Yeah, I think it's good to have a private life.
Business.
But why wouldn't you get the state involved? You know, why wouldn't you put it on paper?
I worked very hard to get here. Women love you until they don't. I'm not saying that I do not trust that woman, but I am saying that I would never leave that to chance, ever. And she is very close to me in age. I've known her for a long time. Yeah.
But you are to some degree saying, it's not, maybe you're not saying you don't trust her, but you're saying you don't trust human nature, or you don't trust...
No, I trust human nature in this subset, but what I'm saying is that if anything were ever to go wrong, there's no chance that I would let everything that I ever worked for slip away from me. I do believe, though, and this is in defense of women, I do believe that if a man is with a woman and she is going to sacrifice some of the best years of her life, having your children, getting behind your cause, helping you in any way that you see fit, that you should do something in order to make sure that she's set up past you. I just don't particularly agree with the portion that the state would take.
50%.
Yeah, that's bullshit. It is.
Well, and frankly,
it absolutely is.
She might take more than 50%.
She might.
Now, I understand it's a fallen world. Bad things happen all the time. my insurance policy, I guess, is that I'm a Catholic. And I'm kind of an old school Catholic in that I believe what the church has taught for 2,000 years. And the Catholic Church says, you get married, you're married for life. You can't get divorced. There are going to be civil wars in England because you can't get divorced. And this is a sacrament. And what God has joined, no man can separate. And also no prenups as an expression of that idea. So I'm signed onto that. My wife, according to the current laws on the books, my wife could take me for basically everything I'm worth.
Right.
It could happen anytime, but I don't lose sleep over it.
But Michael, it won't.
Yeah, I don't think
it won't because of devilishly handsome, Michael Knowles, hardworking. You are protected by that. You are protected by.
But you're protected by that, aren't you?
I am protected by that, but I still would never make that mistake. And I don't mean to say that you're making a mistake. What I do believe, though, is that there are many men that want to believe exactly what you believe, but women call for 70% of the divorces.
Yeah, of course.
Women do love you until they don't.
Yeah.
And in that scenario, she can and will take everything she possibly can. And I am not even blaming the woman. I'm blaming the court system.
Yeah.
I wouldn't personally play in the street that way. Many men, including my father, who married my mother twice and got wrecked.
You married her twice?
Married her twice.
There's something kind of sweet about that, I guess. And that you got to go back
No, I don't think there's anything sweet about it at all. I think that.
You think you shouldn't have married her twice?
No, he shouldn't have married her the first time. But he did. I say this about people. Be graceful with your father because you have information he did not have. And when I look at my father, grew up farming cotton in Oxford, Mississippi. My grandfather came back, he was a tail gunner in World War II, came back, started farming cotton. My dad started helping him. He saw my grandfather go to church every Sunday. He saw the family work, he saw it all work, and he took that faith in the Bible and religion, bringing two people together in union, and he met my mother, and my mother's beauty probably swayed him a bit, enough to marry her twice. And he had the same faith in that, I believe, that you did. But he didn't get the same result because he didn't have the consciousness to go become a Michael Knowles or this person, this man. I do believe one very important thing that a man should do, particularly in a relationship, is do everything in his power to be so unreplaceable that the woman would never want to leave him. And that's what I think is protecting you. I think that particular thing is protecting you more than, and I mean no disrespect to religion at all, than the Catholic faith.
You're articulating a long-standing view of love. And there was actually a debate in medieval poetry about love, in the same way you're talking about it, between Dante, who's one of my main men, and his best friend, Guido Cavalcanti. And Guido Cavalcanti, a poet of the Dolce Stil Nuovo, said that love is from Mars. Love is about war. Love is about interests, and it's a battle, and it's tempestuous, and it's all these things. And Dante thought, no, love is actually more reasonable than that. There's a famous line of a poem, Donne che avete intelletto d'amore, ladies who have intelligence of love, that love is actually something that is reasonable. And so that's the view that I'm articulating. Because even, you're right, I'm devilishly handsome. Someday I could have huge muscles, if I ever wanted it.
It's clearly there.
It's there. The goods are there. But I know people who don't have a lot of money, who don't have a lot going on professionally, and I think they'll never get divorced because these spouses have a shared view of what marriage is, and they would sooner be struck dead than divorced. So they share the Dante view. The view you're talking about is this mercurial view, this really warlike kind of view. How much of that do you think owes to the fact that your parents had this rough marriage history?
I think it's more of a statistical thing for me. I think that I objectively see the world. I look at the world and see it for what it is. And I see the people that are getting divorced. I see the numbers. I'm on these shows where they talk about these statistics. And to be quite frank with you, I have an inbox full of married women on Instagram and Facebook. And so when you get to hypergamy,
Yeah.
it's very real.
Hypergamy, for those out there who don't know.
So women marry and date across and up. And they're constantly, by nature, again, I love women. Let me be very clear about this.
But
And in fact, I have quite the reputation for loving them a bit too much. Yeah. And my wife helps, by the way. So y'all can kiss my ass. But the point I'm trying to make.
wait, your wife helps the hypergamy? No,
You got girlfriends, G.
Really?
Yeah, man. I live the dream, bro. I live the dream. And that's not advice. And you might have to cut it. Cut it if you
no, we don't
cut
have
it
to
if you
cut
wish.
But it's not. Why is it not advice?
When I first started doing social media content, I would talk about these things, right? And even though I didn't mean to, in a lot of ways it came off as if I was promoting having a bunch of women.
Yeah.
I'm actually not.
Why not? If it's good for you, why is it not good for some other guy?
It's not important enough to me to try to promote it. I want people, again, here's the truth of the world. And the truth is that 70% of women do call for divorce. And the truth is that the way the laws are set up.
Or 70% of divorces are initiated by women.
By women.
Yeah.
Right. Women call for 70% of the divorce. Right?
Yeah.
And the truth is that in that situation, you're going to lose your shirt. Right?
Yep.
Okay. So I want to talk about, that's the truth. Here are the things that I prescribe that you do. Become a man that's so hard to replace that she never wants to.
Yeah.
Be the hero, which is the beautiful thing about love, by the way. I love nothing more than winning and then calling her and being like, hey, babe, I killed it.
Yeah. There is something, when you go, you did something, and maybe you don't even brag about it, you say like, hey,
Yeah.
It's a nice feeling.
No, but you get to bring it back to him, and that's what's really beautiful about love. John Eldridge has a book. I don't think Wild at Heart, or it might be the other one about love. And he talks about the energy you get from a woman you love and how it makes the things that you accomplish that much more sweet because you get to bring it back to them. And now we're doing this, and then this, and then this. That is a beautiful thing about love. Like, it's not worth winning. It's not worth making more money. It's not worth accomplishing more if you can't put that energy into my father, the kids, the wife, the family, all of them. Even the nanny gets excited at my house. What, we won again. We killed it again. It's not as fun to do it because then you're just alone. And then what?
But then I agree, of course that's all true.
Right.
But then is the love about the beloved, or is the love about you?
I think the love is about giving.
Okay.
If there was no one to give it to, and you didn't have the yin and yang of male and female, right? You and I both would live in a one-bedroom apartment with a mattress on the floor,
Yes.
not doing a damn thing.
Yeah.
So.
Or even if we were doing a damn thing, we still went out, had shows, built companies, did whatever. I probably would still live in a one-bedroom apartment because I don't care. I don't need a house. What do I?
Exactly. What for?
Yeah.
What for? Why would you do it?
Yeah.
Why would you work late hours, do back-to-back shows with a wristband from the hospital? Why would you do that? It is the beautiful thing about love. And I have plenty of that in my life, so I have a really deep understanding of what it's supposed to look like. And that has nothing to do with my childhood. You build your family in life, and I don't particularly believe that family is the blood that was given to you. I think it's the family that you build. It's when you find people that align with you, like your souls align.
Yeah. Well, it can be. It can. I mean, obviously,
Well,
my wife and I are not from the same, tribe somewhere, but we become one flesh, and now we have kids who are of the same blood of both of us. But I see your point even more broadly. Sometimes people say my friends, they're really my family. And I've got very close friends. I think male friendship is derided, mocked, and even denied today. And I think male friendship is extraordinarily important.
But they want men to be weak.
They want men to be weak. They don't want.
And the best way to do that is separate them.
Yes.
Get them individually in their homes.
Yeah.
Either digitally or quite literally chop their balls off. Make them weak. Tell them the better half and they work for the boss. But A woman is never going to stay attracted to you if she feels like she's the dominant force in the relationship anyway. And so the worst thing you can do is have men start to get together, start to talk.
Yep.
You know, the scariest thing that can ever happen, or build a militia, or build an army, or create a revolution, is a group of men that are on the same page. That's something that the church did very well, regardless of the religion. I don't think we'd have society without religion.
Certainly not. Certainly not.
In any way. But that was a bunch of men coming together and being strong, and there was families that stayed together. The nuclear family was a real thing. And I truly believe the only reason we really lost it is because when we went off the gold standard and started inflating money, we went from a man that could go to work 40 hours a week, take care of his family, take care of the people that he loves, and be the head of the household, to this situation where they started to become peers. And when you lose respect, you lose love, and that's when the family broke, in my opinion.
There is a sense that he who pays the piper calls the tune, and that is a problem of political economy that owes to lots of political and economic factors. I totally agree with that. Before we move on to all of that in the friendship, just one last question about
Please.
You brought up the girlfriend, so
Please.
I get the natural male. You know, I've got red blood. When I was single, I spent too much time chasing women. I
don't chase women, Michael.
Women chase you.
I absorb them.
Oh, yes.
Let's be very clear about that.
But I
can also get away with saying it on Daily Wire.
Yeah.
You think it's going to stop my inbox from filling up?
No, it won't. It won't. You'll actually get more messages probably. But there was a moment when I was single. This is maybe I'm telling too many tales out of school, but I haven't slept in 2 days, and I have a whiskey and a cigar, so here we are. I remember one time, I woke up after, chasing women, and I thought, I'm not denying that it can be fun, but it seems like such a waste of time. I guess you might call it sexhaustion. I had this thought, which was, if I put every second that I ever put into meaningless escapades with women, if I put every second of that into studying, working, building a business, whatever, I would be the president of the United States at 21 years old. Even though that's unconstitutional, I somehow would do it. That's how much time and effort I was placing. I felt that, or I came to the conclusion, rather, that this pursuit of meaningless sex and pleasure was a huge waste of time. It was self-indulgent. It made me more vicious, not more virtuous. It made me less in control of my own self. And I ought to be putting my efforts into more fruitful things.
I think it's a wonderful thing to say, and to each his own. But I don't chase women. I trip over.
But you spend time with the women, with the extra women.
Yeah, from time to time. But it's never stopping me from working, ever.
But it literally is. I mean, look, everyone needs, either you doom scroll or you watch a baseball game or you hang out with women. So I understand. Or you
bring them to an event or a dinner you're already having or whatever.
Yeah.
And we get into the technicals of it, but it's no different from bringing your wife, man.
Well, in that with a...
And again, I can't emphasize on this. This is very important to me. I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
I am not promoting this.
I guess that, to me, that's the most interesting thing you're saying about it.
I am not.
But that's because
I'm
for me,
not.
like you would say, hey, I built a business and I am promoting that. Go build a business.
Right.
You would say, I worked to raise my station in life and I am promoting that. You should do that. I have this discipline. I have that discipline. I have this self-reflection.
Like,
but this is the one thing.
Let's talk about that. That word right there.
Which one?
Discipline.
Yep.
Many times people will say, you don't have discipline. No, asshole. I like it.
But the heroin addict likes it too.
If you were on a diet, Michael,
yeah.
and a pizza lands between us right here, yeah. and I have a six-pack, and I eat the pizza, and you're just like, you're cheating on your diet. No, my friend.
You're indulging.
No, I'm not indulging. I can eat pizza and still have a six-pack.
Yes, yeah.
And I like pizza.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes, yeah.
That's not my lack of discipline. Because maybe I fast all day, which I do. Mm-hmm. I eat once a day.
Really?
So I eat once a day at night.
How are you that big? You eat once a day?
I have 20 years of lifting. It's mature muscle.
Yeah.
So just because you're on a diet,
yep.
don't tell me I'm not disciplined because I have a six-pack.
Yeah, that's part of it.
I am eating and I like pizza.
Yeah. But I guess then to me, the desire is the question. It gets back to what we were talking about with love. You desire building a business. Some guys don't desire. Some guys want to sit on the couch and eat potato chips. That's their desire. They genuinely want that.
Yeah,
They'll say, that's
it.
my discipline. I eat potato chips and watch, cartoons. You don't. You desire building a business. You desire dressing appropriately. You desire this, that, or the other thing. So my point on really maybe one of two disagreements we have, of all the things we agree on, when it comes to the marriage stuff, is I'm sure you have that desire and it's part of your discipline to have girlfriends and stuff, but is it good for you? Wouldn't it be better for you not to? And the only reason I even bring it up is because you said this is the one thing I don't promote among all the other things I am promoting.
I don't.
Right. So why don't you promote it? Because you think it's not good.
No, because I don't think it's important enough to push. I don't think it's important. I could be with it or without it, and for some weird reason, I think that's why I absorb so much of it.
The confidence is attractive. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I get asked all the time, it's like, if a girl texts you, I have a young man ask me this, if a girl texts you, do you wait to text her back? No. I'm just so busy that I don't text her back. Because waiting to text her back is just manipulating her. I am that guy that is that busy that I will text her back when I have time, when I'm not playing with my kids.
You know what a Christian might say, though, is the reason that you absorb so much of it is because the devil's having a hard time getting to you in all these other aspects of your life, because you're very diligent in your work, and you're this, and you're that, and you're this, and that. And maybe he thinks that's the one way he gets in.
Could be. And we all fall short of the grace of the God. So tell me, Michael, what is your indulgence? What is your sin?
In terms of sins, pride is a occupational hazard in politics and media. So that's one you got to watch out for. Lust
in regards to ego?
Yeah.
Because you're clearly very intelligent. Is
Stop it, get out of here. Yeah, there's a risk, if you go on camera and tell people what you think, there is a temptation to pride. You got to watch it, especially because pride is the queen of all vice. And we say in the month of June, it's the vice of all queens, as my friend Andrew pointed out. So that's one. If you're a man, if you're a red-blooded man with ordinary desires, lust is a vice you got to watch out for. That's why I bring it up or focus on it.
Right.
There's others, though. I don't know. I'm Italian. Gluttony is a risk. We like our supersat and hoagies. Wrath is a risk in politics, especially. You got to watch that. So, what are my temptations? I don't like all of them, basically. Some more than others. And so, I being a mackerel snapping papist, go to confession regularly as I can and try to. And so you examine your conscience. You say, which is why I bring it up for you, because you've got so much going on where you're so clearly introspective about it. And so if you told me I eat the pizza but I don't promote it, if you say I promote all these things, but
that is what I
don't
told you.
Promote, but you would promote the pizza to another guy who has a six-pack, who diet, or who fasts all day, who lifts and all, right?
No, at this point in my career, I am almost actively saying I'm not promoting it.
The women or the pizza?
Well,
or both?
In this particular,
women.
Pizza is women in the example. If you're on a diet and I'm not, and I eat the pizza but I still have a six-pack. I just like the pizza. It's not lack of discipline on my fault. You're on a diet, not me.
Do you think having these girlfriends is good for the girlfriends?
Can be. Yeah, in many ways.
In the long term, is it good for the girlfriends?
That's a very interesting question. I think that it would be a long-winded answer because I help them in so many ways.
Yep.
But I think in the stage they are in their life, that it generally is a good thing. I know that they want to be with me. I know that they follow up a lot, and I'm busy.
There's so much more to say. First, though, text Knowles to 989898. Saudi Arabia recently ended its 50-year petrodollar deal with the U.S., which has the potential to weaken the U.S. dollar. Since 1974, Saudi Arabia has sold oil solely in U.S. dollars, which was huge for our global economic dominance. If there is less demand for the U.S. dollar, what happens to its value? It's important to diversify your savings into gold, so you can do that with the help of Birch Gold right now. Qualifying purchases that are made by July 31st are eligible to get a one-of-a-kind limited edition golden truth bomb. You know the truth bomb? Well, let me just open it up here and show you. I don't even want to touch it. I don't want to smudge it. You get the golden truth bomb. And the only way to claim your eligibility is by texting Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, to 989898. Protect your savings by diversifying away from the US dollar with gold. Text Knowles to 989898. Birch Gold will help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold for no money out of pocket. Right now, qualifying purchases will get a limited edition Golden Truth Bomb. Text Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, to 989898. That is Knowles to 989898. Moving on from the women, because I want to get to the men.
Yeah.
Male friendship is important.
Gave me whiskey and asked me about women.
Yeah. I should have saved the women for the end of the whiskey.
Yeah, bro, you'd have got me good. You'd have got me good.
So, onto friendship. Because you say, oh, look, I have family, and it doesn't need to be on a piece of paper, and it doesn't need to be your blood. So you're talking about your friends, too. Male friendship, society is discouraging it, discounting it, mocking it, denying its possibility even. So then how does a young guy get friends?
Every generation has a new set of problems and a new set of opportunities. I believe that the internet, by and largely, is a problem to many people. Whether it makes them feel smaller than they should, where it makes them feel less, where it makes them feel insecure. But in some instances, the internet offers the opportunity for any individual, regardless of what they believe or what they want to be a part of, to find the people that align with them, a tribe, if you will. And if I'm a young man in 2024, I will be deeply investigating what I want in life and trying to find other people that align with those same values. For me, it's people that want to be better, that want to make money together. I often say this, and it's very unpopular sometimes, is that if we're not making money together, I don't have any interest in being your friend. And the reason I feel that way is because if I'm not pushing you to create a better life for yourself, your wife, your kids, and your future generations, am I really a friend to you?
But do you mean you got to be in business together?
You have to be growing together.
Growing. Aristotle says there are three kinds of friendships. The lowest kind of friendship is the friendship of pleasure. You know, you both like playing racquetball. Okay.
That's bullshit. That's not friendship.
Yeah, it's probably you go out, but you don't have that much to do with each other. The next level of friendship is the friendship of utility, which sounds like what you're talking about, but I'm not sure it's what you're talking about, which is the friendship where you benefit each other. You know, you make money together, right. Or you're colleagues, or you're in a network, and so you can grow each other's business or whatever. But Aristotle says there's a higher form of friendship, true friendship, which is friendship of the good. And friendship of the good, Aristotle believes, is possible only between virtuous men, and it's where you might think you're both standing next to each other, looking at the same thing. You're both pursuing the good, not for some self-interest or making money or something, but for the good itself. Your version of friendship, where does it fall in that scale?
I think it falls in two. And depending on how you define virtue, also three. Let's say my relationship with Andrew.
Andrew Tate.
Yeah. Andrew and I have helped each other make money. We have helped young men all over the world together and talk about it quite often, about the things they might need to hear, what will actually help them in reality, not in wishful thinking. And so we make money together, and you could also say there's a lot of virtue in helping other people that we will never meet. So it depends on how you're defining virtue, because you've said it twice.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to know, what do you define as virtue? For you.
Yeah. I'll define the virtues for you.
Okay.
Which are the theological virtues.
Let's do it.
The most important virtues are faith, hope, and charity. And then the cardinal virtues are justice, temperance, fortitude, and...
Is this from Catholicism?
The Catholics recognize these virtues, though there is a classical conception of virtue as well. And so moderation is a virtue, even though some would say I'm not a political moderate. But I kind of think I am a political moderate in that it prevents you from falling between extremes that are, can lead you afoul because, well, there's a whole conversation to be had on that. Maybe we'll get to it. So those are the virtues. And so we're talking about the natural virtues, justice and temperance and all that. But there are greater virtues, which are theological virtues, faith, hope, and charity, which then leads me to ask a question about something you said. You said, I try to help men in reality, not in wishful thinking. But I think hope is a virtue, and a very important virtue. It's the virtue oriented toward the future. And you've obviously, in some way, engaged with this virtue. You wouldn't have started a business if you didn't. You wouldn't be as driven if you didn't. So what's the difference between reality and wishful thinking?
Let's go back to the marriage thing. No disrespect, truly. If she wants to wreck you, she can.
Yes, totally.
So this is not a knock on religion. It's wishful thinking for especially a normal man, that's not you, to go into the world, set up this structure on religion and her abiding by that 2024 hypergamy, social media, everything that's involved, to think that you would take that kind of deal in today's marketplace and not be exposing yourself to a major risk that can wreck you.
You are exposing yourself to a major risk.
So when I say wishful thinking, I think
You mean risk.
Exactly that.
But you take on risk all the time. You just said if I'm not going to go bankrupt every 4 years, I'm not taking on enough risk.
But I do them aggressively towards making money. I don't sign bad contracts on purpose.
But I do them aggressively toward virtue and I hope religion,
Yeah,
which
very
is a
fair.
habit of virtue to
But
give
if
to
you
God
were
what he
to read a
deserves.
contract in a business deal, if I sent you a business deal today
Yep.
that says, we're buddies, we build a company together, but if I ever change my mind, I get to wreck you, whether it's your fault or not.
Yeah.
That's a contract you will not sign.
That's true. I would not.
That's
say
all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. And that's not a knock on religion or marriage.
But there's more,
I think that marriage and coming together in family is one of the most beautiful things in this world.
Yeah.
I don't believe in signing that contract.
But you, in a way, you have signed the contract because you and I don't need to go into business together. We could go into. I'm sure we could go into business together. We could start a
Michael,
new line
we
of
kill
cigars. We could kill it.
Two handsome guys and cigars. Let's go.
But we don't need to start a business together. I could start some other kind of business. I could
As
work
we
for
all
somebody.
could, yeah.
But we will get married one way or the other. You are married, kind of, even though you won't sign the. But because man is a coupling being, creature. We're attracted to women. We want to propagate the species. We want kids. We want to raise them. It's just that just comes to us. That is different than starting a widget factory, don't you think? Surely you do. That's how you live.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I do think it's back to the point I was making earlier. We got off the subject. So the truth of the world. I've said that on that subject. The competencies it will take to be successful in the world. This is what I would want for all my followers, for my children, everybody. And then choice. And so.
What do you mean by choice?
Choice. I'll give you a great example. I want my children to know the truth of the world. I want to give them the competencies it takes for them to create a life where they have choice, even if I don't agree with their decisions.
Why do you want that for them?
Because
I don't want that for my kids.
What do you want for your children? You don't want your children to have choice. Let me give you a great example.
My daughters. Their life might entail choice, but it's not my chief goal for them.
My daughters. I teach them the truth of the world. I give them the competencies and set them up. Let's be fair. I will do that. And then I want them to have the choice whether they want to be with a man or not.
Do you want your kid? You say, all right, this is what I want for you, kiddo.
Mm-hmm. My kids, it's such an important thing.
Yeah. Either you say, and you can say one of these two things to your kid.
Okay.
Kid, I want for you someday never to shoot heroin, ever. Not even once, don't even think about it. Or, kid of mine, I want you to be so well set up that you have the choice of whether or not to shoot heroin. You're telling me you would advocate the latter over the former?
I think you're choosing an extreme.
I am, to elucidate the point.
Right, and I appreciate that. But let's say my daughter wanted to be a lesbian.
Yeah.
I would say, baby, I think you'd be much happier in this other situation. But as long as you are living your life with choice, then who am I to judge you? Because I'm not
Hold on.
Jesus.
So you would rather your daughter have choice than happiness?
Isn't her choice happiness in the first place?
You just distinguished between the two. You said, I
No,
think
I
you would
didn't.
be happier if you weren't a lesbian, but I want you to have choice rather than what I think will give you happiness.
How about this? What if she did only?
God forbid.
God forbid, literally. I would hate that.
Yes, and that would make her miserable.
But would I turn my back on her?
You wouldn't turn your back. I'm not saying turn your back on her. You shouldn't turn your back on her.
And I'd want her to have choice. I'd say, baby.
Why would you want her to have choice? That's the thing. You would never turn your back on her. Of course, you don't turn your back on your kid. But
Because I know that she's going to do what she wants to do anyway.
so you're saying she just will have choice.
She will have choice, but I also want her to have choice.
Why? That's the part I'm confused with.
Yeah, I have choice in my life.
And you've made good choices and bad choices.
Yeah, and many people disagree with some of my choices, but you know what? It's not their life to live, is it?
But you're just giving advice. So you know, it's not like you're saying I'm going to take over someone's life or I'm going to be a tyrant or something like that. But you're saying
Never.
You're saying that you value choice as one of, if not the paramount things that a person can possess.
Choice is freedom, Michael.
I don't think so.
What do you think is freedom?
I think freedom is willing, predicated on knowledge. A lot of people today, on the left and on the right even, increasingly, think that freedom is choosing between two things. I don't think it's that. The classical conception, that is the liberal conception of freedom. The liberals believe that. Classical liberals, modern liberals,
I'm probably as
progressive
far as from a liberal.
I know, you would never call yourself a liberal, but that is a liberal conception of freedom, in my humble reading of liberalism. The classical conception of freedom, the Christian conception of freedom, is different. That says that freedom is willing, so it involves the will, but it's the will based on knowledge. So if you say you have your will, but you don't know anything, you don't know that heroin's bad for you, you don't know that OnlyFans is exploitative and it's going to make you miserable, you don't know, you're not really free because you're ignorant. Or if you have no command over your will, if you know heroin's bad for you, if you know OnlyFans is bad for you, but you're just addicted, you're addicted to the drug or the sex or whatever, you're not really free. No one would say a heroin addict is free. That's not freedom. And to bring it to its extreme...
You're talking about being enslaved by a vice.
Yes, but you're enslaved by, you would even say concupiscence or disordered desires. Yeah.
Based off what?
What do you mean?
Because I feel like in many ways, your frame of reference is coming from religion.
Ultimately, all frames of reference, I think, come from religion. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I'll bring it fully to religion at its extreme. If freedom is choice, then God is less free than we are, because God cannot sin. Because God, at least in the Christian, not the Muslim understanding necessarily, but in the Christian understanding, is identified with the divine logic of the universe. Pope Benedict XVI, in a famous lecture, quotes a medieval Muslim writer, Ibn Hazm, who says that the Allah of Islam is perfectly transcendent, pure will. If he willed his followers to worship idols, he could do it. Mm-hmm. That's not the view in Christianity. In Christianity, the Logos, the divine logic, is God. And so if freedom is just choice, we're freer than God. I don't think we're freer than God. I think that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I don't think the heroin addict, or the person who's perfectly neutral between do heroin and don't do heroin, do only and don't do only, I don't think that person is as free as the person who is not inclined to do the things that will harm him, and who is inclined to do the things that will help him to grow and make the choices later on down the line that will make him even more flourishing.
So I think that taking it to heroin and only is definitely an extreme.
Yeah, it's just
let me be quite literal for you. I don't want my daughters to have to be with a man they don't love.
Okay.
I want them to understand the things that they look for in a man and understand why they don't understand, maybe why they're not attracted to certain men. Like when I talk about the competencies, I want to even teach them things about themselves that they don't understand. it's not for the extreme of heroin or OnlyFans. It's that I want them to be able to live a life free enough where they can do the things that they really want to do. And those things could be very beautiful things, Michael.
But they could be very evil.
They
and
could
harmful
be very
things.
evil and harmful.
So that's the only reason I take it to the extremes is just to clarify these two definitions of freedom that we're talking about. And I bet that what you actually want for your daughters is to live good, happy lives. I think that's actually
1,000%, very
of course.
clearly.
So I think
clearly.
all this choice language is liberal BS that is just floating around the culture, and I don't think you really mean it. If I might be so bold as to suggest that.
No, I don't want my girls on heroin.
Yeah.
But I will say,
Or even to have the choice. I don't think you even want them to, well, obviously you don't want them to be on heroin, but I don't think you even want them really to have the choice. And I certainly don't want my kids to have the choice.
but you know what though? To be quite honest with you, them having the choice or not is way bigger than them. It's about the things in this country that should be controlled better. You know, if heroin is not on the streets,
Yes.
then she doesn't have the choice.
Yeah.
So it has not a damn thing to do with me creating a life for her that hopefully has the choice and the freedoms that we all want. And then she's not enslaved to some man that she doesn't actually love or some government that has gotten too big.
Do you mean, so you're saying, you mean if she got married? And then she doesn't love it?
Married are, if we keep going on the path we're on, we'll be socialist.
Yeah, yeah. No, I just mean,
Like-
when you say your daughter could be enslaved to a man she doesn't love, you mean within the context. Because if they weren't married, she could just walk away.
You're right. I
But with
want,
it- but
I want
in the
her.
current-
I want her to have competence in her life that she can literally either support. And listen, I'm not a feminist either. I think feminism is wrecking women.
Yeah, yeah.
It is wrecking them. In fact, a lot of my advantage in the whole situation of like dating a bunch of women is that feminism told them that they could do this, this, and this,
Yes.
and then they get tired of it,
Yes.
and they're tired of being around men that act like women, and they're tired of being in the man in the relationship, which makes it a layup for me.
Yes. All of the hypergamy and all
Yeah,
all that stuff,
all that bull-
that is a consequence of feminism. I totally agree.
1,000%.
But we agree that feminism is bad.
We do. You know what's funny? I don't even think we actually disagree on the subject. We're just disagreeing on the terms and the word choice.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. There are these subtle, yes.
Yes.
Broadly, I suspect we're.
So can I ask you a question?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Please.
This is fun. Whiskey, 9 o'clock in the morning, Michael.
They're not going to let me into the hospital. to
I
pick up
spoke at an
my-
event last night till like 1 o'clock in the morning. Now I'm drinking whiskey. You're having babies. We're in Tennessee.
Yeah.
This is
That's
crazy.
freedom.
Maybe we're the degenerates, Michael.
mean,
Maybe it's us.
right now.
Maybe you've tricked me into degeneracy and you're throwing it back in my face.
That might be. At least the producers. At least I'll blame the producers.
I can't believe it.
But you were going to ask me a
Dude, if I don't meet Britt Cooper, because I heard her talking in the hallway earlier, if I don't get to meet Britt Cooper, I'm going to be pissed.
Well, it depends. If you're going to say a nice, polite hello, that's one thing.
Oh, 1,000%.
Okay, all right.
1,000%, man. I
She's
actually
marvelous.
super respect her.
She's marvelous.
We had like a little internet thing.
Did you?
Yeah. Like
Not a DMs, though. It was not a...
No, it was
got
like
it.
she reacted to one of my videos. I reacted back, but actually, I heard she got engaged. I think that's incredible.
She just got married.
That's awesome, bro.
did.
Like I like the girl. She's very admirable, very respectable. I think she's a really good person.
She's fabulous.
And-
Now, but you were about to ask me a question.
I was going to ask you a question. So do you agree with me on the first two? Here's the truth of the world, right?
With regard to...
Like this is no, just in general.
In general, yeah.
Hey, this is how the world actually works. They're going to tell you it works this way. It doesn't. This is what's real. Here are the competencies that I'd like you to know, the things I want to teach you as a father in order to be successful. And then I go to, because I want you to have choice in your life, I don't want you to be a slave. And really, when I say choice, what I really mean is I don't want you to be a slave to anything. Because that's the last thing I want. It's the last thing I want for anybody that follows me, anybody I know. And when I say choice, it's a freedom. It's an upward trajectory thing, not heroin.
We almost agree.
So tell me what yours is.
I
Do you agree on the first two?
I agree, certainly in the first. I want to tell you the facts of the world.
Yeah.
And then I would put a little coda on that, which is the word normal is important here. Because you say you want to teach people how...
Says the guy that brings up heroin.
Yeah, well, unfortunately,
Come on,
that's increasingly
Michael.
normal. But the word normal is a duplicitous
writer.
word. Yeah. It's a duplicitous word because it refers to the things that are commonly done, but it also refers to norms and standards that are ideal, that we strive for, that we often fall short of. Right? A norm is something we strive to achieve, but we sometimes fall short of it. And the norms of a culture are what people commonly do. So the word refers to two totally different things, right? So I do want to tell people the facts of this world.
And you do it every day.
And I do it every day. I also want to tell people the facts of the world as it ought to be. That's the dual meaning of norm.
Ought to be based off of what?
Off of...
Because this is where we can go in a whole nother rabbit hole. You're a very religious man.
practicing.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I am a person that came from a family that saw infidelity in church.
Yeah, yeah.
That saw some of my number one person, avatar of person that I do not like, and I can only think of one, is a hypocritical Christian.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't even think Christians like hypocritical Christians.
No, certainly not.
In a world where there are thousands of religions, very clearly stars upon stars upon stars that very likely have life because carbon and oxygen and all those things are there.
I don't think they have life. But
okay,
I'll let you
fair.
finish your point. Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not saying that you're saying this, but I am definitely going on a tangent here, but I do
Yep.
think it's important. I think to look at any other human and tell them that they might go to hell if they don't follow that particular religion is arrogant.
You don't think is it arrogant to tell some kid that he's going to have a crappy life if he doesn't follow your advice on a job?
No.
What is it then?
Because I've lived life enough to know for a fact that if he takes care of his business, he'll have an incredible life.
So it's confidence in what you're saying.
No, it's actual life experience.
Yeah, yeah. But so can one not have experience, just as one has experience in business, can one not have experience in
faith?
Sanctity? Yeah.
I think faith and religion, again, I'll go back to this, without it, society does not exist. Religion plays a very important role in our world.
But you don't want to take it too seriously.
No, it's not that. It's the condemnation of telling someone that if they don't do it the way that individual says they should do it, their belief, their form of belief even, that person is going to hell. I think that is quite arrogant. So if a Southern Baptist comes up to me and tells me that if I don't show up to church on Sunday and do it exactly the way they do at that church, that I'm going to burn in fire and brimstone, which, by the way, really bothers me because when I was a little boy, I got told that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I find that to be quite manipulative to a child.
What if it's true? I'm not saying it is true. In this case, I don't think it is true. But
I don't either.
But what if
I don't either.
What if it is true?
What if it is true? Then it's 1 in a million, because don't you disagree with that? Or are you a Southern Baptist or are you a Catholic?
Yeah,
all right?
I'm a Catholic.
But
That's
what
why
if
I
you were a
don't-
Methodist? What if you were Hindu? What if you were born in the jungle of South America and you never knew? Are you going to burn in hell for that?
Dante asked this question, not to bring it back to Dante. He asked almost that exact question. He says, what about the poor man on the Indus River who's never heard the name Christ? And he asks this to the Eagle of Justice in the Divine Comedy. And the Eagle's answer is basically the answer of God to Job in the book of Job, which is, who are you? Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Who are you? This is beyond your limited capacity to understand. But it doesn't mean there isn't an answer. So when you say there are thousands of religions in the world,
Right.
I would phrase it differently. I would say there's religion. Religion is the habit of virtue that inclines the will to give to God what he deserves. And there are lots of different opinions on religion. But there's still only one religion in the sense that there's only one God, ultimately. And so people are disagreeing over things. And just as when people disagree over, any subject, there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. And so whatever you were told as a kid, I'm not saying that was necessarily...
Do you believe that the Catholics and the Mormons see it the same way?
They do not.
So is it the same?
I think the Catholics are right and the Mormons are somewhat mistaken. But I think there's a lot to recommend the Mormons' views. I think they get a lot of things right, but they don't get everything right.
All right.
I think the Southern Baptists get a lot of things right, they don't get everything right. In some ways, even the non-theistic religions get some things right.
Do you believe that Catholicism sees it the same way as Islam?
No, certainly not.
Somebody's wrong, man.
Yes, in this case, I
And
would
what
say,
I'm saying is,
Yeah.
all I'm saying is is that to condemn somebody or tell them that they might burn eternally in hell for it is bullshit
Why?
and arrogant.
Well, but
Because how are they to know? How are they to truly
because you're telling
know?
them. Isn't it more harmful to someone
and
not to
listen.
tell them the truth as you see it?
And let me be very clear. I'm not saying that I don't believe in God. What I am saying is, how am I to know? It's one of,
Does anybody go to hell?
does hell exist?
Does hell exist?
Do we know?
That's what I'm asking you.
I don't
exists, and
think it's
people
fair
go.
for me to say that I know.
But
I
you
think that would
believe
be
in God.
quite arrogant of me to say that I know that you or I are going to go to hell if we don't do it a certain way. I think that'd be very arrogant to say.
Why would that be arrogant?
Because there's just too much up to debate there. Science and religion and
There's
the
some
amount of planets and galaxies and all these different
Some
things that
people
are.
say that the economy should involve private enterprise and businesses competing for market share. Some people say that government should be run by a socialist dictator who allocates resources as he sees fit. You have an opinion over which of those views is better, I strongly suspect. Isn't it arrogant? There are many other opinions on how the economy should be run. Isn't it arrogant of you to recommend one
This
view
one
or
is
the other?
this is very much a very important one. This one
The economy is pretty important, I think.
not more important than spirituality.
Certainly not, but
Not more important than your relationship or my relationship with God.
So if the economy is important and you're willing to offer people views for their own betterment on the economy, isn't it even more important to offer your view and to pursue the truth when it comes to something as pertains to the
And I'm giving it
eternal
to you
soul?
now. I don't think it's fair to tell somebody if they don't follow the religion of thousands of religions, that if they don't follow your religion, you're going to burn eternally in hell. I don't think that makes sense. I think that there's no chance mathematically that we're the only life.
I think there is. I think it's.
There's no
I think it's
chance.
very unlikely that there is.
I think it's
outside of Earth.
very unlikely that there's not.
Why?
If you look at just how small we are and how many other situations are very comparable with the elements like carbon, oxygen, everything that creates life, I think it's very unlikely that, do you know how much bigger, and you do, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know, and I'm not claiming to be, Tyson over here that knows everything about it, but I will tell
Mike
you.
Tyson?
No, not Mike Tyson. Neil
I think
deGrasse
Mike Tyson. I think Mike Tyson probably knows more than Neil deGrasse Tyson knows, frankly, about the fundamentals of reality.
Well,
but
I'm just saying I think it's very mathematically unlikely there's not more life.
a lot of people say that. I have a colleague here.
Who is it?
Would be Matt Walsh. He and I have furious arguments about this.
Matt Walsh might be cooler than you then.
He apparently, I don't know, on this
Maybe
one
not
issue,
as handsome.
He's not even
Maybe
close,
not as
but-
handsome for the record.
But this is I'm not putting words in Matt's mouth, but the argument that I hear is mathematically, the world is so big. But in order to ascertain the probability of something, don't you need to know how a thing comes about? Yes. So the question then is not what are the elements that we find in all life forms, it seems to me. The question is, how does life arise in the first place? And the scientists, Neil deGrasse Tyson or Mike Tyson or Matt Walsh for that matter, none of them have an answer to that. In fact, the best answer we have is that God pulled clay together and then breathed in its nostrils, and then we had man. That's like the best explanation. That's by far the most persuasive one we've ever heard. So, barring that, how does one go from inorganic matter to a life form? We don't have an answer to it. So then how could we possibly ascertain the probability of life coming to be in other parts of the universe?
How could you possibly entertain the fact of it not being a possibility?
Because there's no way to ascertain the probability of it if you don't know how the thing comes about to be in the first place, is my answer.
And you think God is the answer to that?
Well,
Inside,
no, I think the answer is there are
inside
no
Catholicism.
yeah, I think there are no
Yeah.
aliens, but meaning I have no reason to believe that there's life anywhere else in the universe. It could be, let's say it's not just really, really big, but let's say it were infinite. The cosmos were infinite, which it would seem they are not, but let's say that they were. Even so, that wouldn't change the. You say, well, we're so little. Why are we so special, basically? Because I think we're special. That's why, because I think we're made in the image and likeness of God.
Let me ask you another question. This is getting fun. if they were to find life tomorrow on another planet through satellite,
Yeah.
what do you think that would do to the world in regards to religion, politics, and the way that we interact with one another as humans?
It would depend on the kind of life. So if it were a bacterium or something.
Nothing.
Yeah.
If it were a legitimate level 1 civilization.
So you're saying rational life, life that speaks,
Legitimate.
that talks about
Consciousness.
justice. Yeah,
Consciousness.
It would raise questions for me. C.S. Lewis,
I know him.
You know C.S.
I know
Lewis,
C.S. Lewis. Read some
Anglican
of his books.
apologist. He wrote a whole trilogy on this, the space trilogy, and his view is basically we would act as the serpent in the Garden of Eden and we would corrupt this. It's a work of fiction. It would raise questions to me about the incarnation, because if man is made in the image and likeness of God, and man falls through the abuse of his free will, because of his misuse of
choice.
freedom, exactly,
Yeah, okay.
because of choice, actually, in a way, then God, through the felix culpa, the happy fault that makes for us that gives to us so great, so glorious a Redeemer, we have an intercessor who dies for our sins, who takes on human nature, he takes on our nature, and has fully divine nature. And this is the meeting of heaven and earth and the redemption of mankind. Then it would raise questions to me about the nature of the Trinity, because I don't think that there would be a Martian savior or a Saturnal savior.
Of course. Do you think that it would turn humanity to start to work together, to find not a common enemy, but to get our things together and stop killing each other? I do believe in a few hundred years they're going to laugh at us for the fact that in 2024 we still kill one another, humans killing humans.
No, I don't think that, put another way, it seems what you're suggesting is that aliens would fix this broken aspect of human nature, whereby we fight and we...
In many ways.
I don't think aliens are our savior.
No.
What you've shown to me, though...
You can spin a word.
I don't mean to spin it unfairly, but it seems to me what you've just suggested is something that a lot of people believe when they talk about aliens, which is that aliens are angels and demons for secularists. Meaning aliens would fill the role that is traditionally filled by religion. And
I disagree with that, actually, respectfully. What I'm saying is, somebody's wrong. Of thousands of religions, only one person can be right.
One religion would be the most right. Some have it,
Right.
Many have aspects of truth, but only one would have the fullness of truth.
Only one would have the fullness of truth.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, many religions will say that if you don't follow the right religion, you are going to hell.
Yeah, I mean...
Certainly the Baptist.
Yeah. Maybe they're a little more fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's hell, which is where you go when you sever yourself from God through the abuse of your free will, in the Catholic view. And then there is heaven, where you go and enjoy the beatific vision for eternity. And the traditional Christian view, and the Catholic view, is that only perfect things go into heaven. And so there can be a period of expurgation after the particular judgment when you die. And you might not have severed divine grace, you might not be in mortal danger, but you still have to be expurgated. And this is the concept of purgatory, which is a traditional Christian view that some Protestants don't believe in, but in any case, it's a Catholic view. And so, again, I don't know, Dante keeps coming up. You'll see people with the same sins. Some are in hell, some are in purgatory. How come one guy commits the sin, he goes to hell, one guy commits the exact same sin, he goes to purgatory, and he will end up in heaven forever? And it's about the orientation of the will and the love of God in one's faith. So that's the deciding factor, I suppose.
I see. Do you believe that you can have morality without religion? Do you believe, like, virtue, somebody can be virtuous without religion?
Accidentally, but not.
Is it accidentally, though?
Yeah.
If you go through life and you operate your life from a place of love and care, and you're genuinely a good person, God can see your heart.
I don't think that being a good person in the eyes of the world or in the eyes of the self suffices to save mankind. I don't think we can save ourselves through our own good works. You
Even if you have the purest heart there ever was.
You don't. Well, you don't because
Nobody does.
because you commit sin.
Yeah. Okay.
The view that you're describing is an ancient heresy called Pelagianism, and there are other versions of it, but that's probably the most famous one, where you earn your salvation.
Let me be very clear with you on this subject, though. I'm asking you out of interest more than I am making a point.
Yeah,
I think it's
that's my favorite kind of question.
I think it's very fair for someone to say they don't know. And in fact, for anyone to say they do know, no disrespect, I do find it to be arrogant because how many times was the Bible written by the Romans?
How many times was it written?
Yeah.
Well, it was only written once. It's been translated.
It's not been rewritten at all?
It depends what your view of translation is. I mean, there's a notion that translation involves a kind of betrayal because languages are distinct. So there's an Italian phrase, traduttore traditore. The translator is a traitor to the language. But it's only been written once.
How do you feel about slavery in the Bible?
The notion that certain slavery could be sanctioned.
That was
different
okay,
times.
yes.
Yeah, well, this might be a little bit more of a Southern Baptist issue than a Catholic issue because from the early days of the colonization of the Americas, the Catholic Church condemned it. Said, no, stop it. So much so that in the Spanish colonies, they actually stopped reading papal bulls publicly because the popes kept saying, stop enslaving the natives, stop exploiting them. But there are gradations of labor also. So to the point of sanctioning slavery or something, there are gradations of labor. And so, not to sound like a big pinko or anything like that, but one can legally abolish slavery and still exploit workers in a way that is quite evil. So that you might say, well, look, we've abolished slavery, it's legally, it no longer exists, but we're going to pay you in company notes and we're going to basically restrict any ability you have to work for anyone else. Well, that's a kind of
Michael,
slavery.
to clarify everything we've talked about, when I talk about choice, what I really mean is that my children have the opportunity not to be enslaved by anything. That's what I mean. But back to the Bible. Slavery's in the Bible. Is it not?
We need to get more lighters here. I can't believe, do I have one on me? I might have one on me. You know, Justin, I always come prepared.
Oh, do you?
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
My
look,
guy.
there's incest and polygamy and all sorts of stuff in the Bible, not necessarily encouraged. And in the degree to which slavery or any other kind of labor relation is acknowledged or even condoned, I think it's within the context, obviously, of the fallen state of the world. Man's been kicked out of the Garden of Eden. By the sweat of his brow will he earn his food. And so that fallen aspect of the world, not just in labor, but in
Michael.
sex and family, politics.
It's in there.
I'm not denying. I guess I'm trying.
I'll tell you another thing that's in there.
Sorry?
Women. Women don't get a good deal in the Bible in many cases. Property.
All generations will call Mary blessed.
Yeah.
Women get a pretty good deal.
Yeah. So, I just simply ask, what if we don't know? How would we treat each other if we found out we didn't know? And that's all I meant by what if we
Isn't
found life?
that's sort of the John Lennon view? You know,
I'm not
imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. It seems like kind of a hippie view because
it's quite literally in our face. We have this all omnipotent God that knows everything, and children are dying all over the world, and there's earthquakes, and even animals suffer. And
there are earthquakes. I don't know that animals suffer quite in the same way that a rational being would suffer, but yeah, there's pain and death and all sorts of misery.
And I'm not trying to disprove it. I'm simply saying that it is arrogant, especially for a sinner, to judge and condemn another sinner.
I'm not condemning anybody.
I'm not saying you are. I'm talking about this avatar of person.
But even this avatar of a
people that
person,
do it.
all they're doing is, to the best of their ability, articulating what they believe would be a divine justice,
And it
not
is
their own.
mathematically most often likely the case that they, in the religion they choose, in the context in which they choose it, are wrong.
Yeah,
And maybe you're right, and maybe the Methodist is wrong, Maybe the Hindu guy is wrong. All I'm
I
saying...
drove past a Methodist sign on the way to work, and
Yeah.
it said, "Diversity makes God happy. Reverend Sheila will be preaching on Sunday." I'm pretty convinced at least that Methodist church is wrong. I'm pretty convinced they're wrong.
And you're probably right.
And
if they have a rainbow flag on their church, they're probably wrong.
But what you're exalting as a kind of epistemological humility seems to me, in a way, just infidelity. Humility is a very important thing, and we ought to be humble, especially personally humble. But we also ought to have faith and confidence to say the things that we know are true. One of the knocks on liberalism, a former president of Yale said this, is, believe it or not, even though Yale's very liberal, he said, freedom is good, skepticism rather, is good only in as much as it leads to conviction. At a certain point, we have to come to conclusions. We have to decide things. So you have so much confidence in stating so many facts about the world. I'm going to tell people the truth about the world. You're not worried about arrogance when it comes to stating the truth about the world. So why not have some confidence, one might even say faith, when it comes to stating the most important truths?
I think there's a big difference between faith and actual confidence of things that you've lived through.
Do you have views on things that you've never experienced?
Not particularly. Not any that I would say to you with conviction.
You've never experienced genocide, but you would say it's bad.
I would say it's bad, but I wouldn't go around talking about it or
You would condemn it, though. You would condemn genocide.
I wouldn't vote for it.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So
But there's a big difference there.
You're willing to articulate.
There's a big difference there. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that there's not a God. I would never say that.
Yeah.
Because that in itself to me, just like the other...
Would you say there is a God?
I would say it'd be arrogant to say that I knew. That's all I'm saying.
It just...
I would say, if you said, Justin, is there a God? Even if I had no evidence, I don't know. That's all I'm saying. I'm not making a case for either side. I'm saying that people that walk through the world
I wish you would
condemning
make a case.
other people to hell
Yeah,
are
I don't condemn any.
arrogant.
It's not
That's
within
what
my
I'm
power to
saying.
condemn people. But
This is fun.
I agree.
Yeah, more Hibiki. Let's go. Hibiki and Jesus?
The Hibiki is excellent, by the way. I know you called for the Hibiki.
I did, man.
And before I go to pick up my, even though I'm running slightly late, I will have one last little sip. Sip.
Bro, I would, and we got to talk about Trump.
We have to.
All right.
My only final thought on religion, as pertains to you particularly, is you are obviously a man of great natural virtue. There's no flattery. I'm not talking about your stunning good looks or whatever.
Right.
You have obviously great natural virtue. You've pulled yourself out of a bad situation with bad influences to a great deal of success and natural discipline and all the rest of it. And you're so ambitious, it seems to me contrary to where that natural virtue ought to be leading you, to give up when it comes to supernatural virtue, when it comes to saying, okay, I know this much, but I go no further. I will succeed in this way as pertains to the natural world, but I will go no further. It would be a great pity for you to content yourself with natural success, because I think you are set up to have far more significant success than that. That's my main conclusion on religion.
Let me give you some vulnerability that I would not normally give. I've enjoyed this conversation. I'm not done looking. Here's where maybe we could have a further conversation with no cameras on.
Yeah.
I have deeply tried to make it make complete sense to me. Every time I have that conversation, and I've done it multiple times in my life, it always ends in, you just have to have faith. Unfortunately for me, that doesn't answer the question. So I'm left with, you need to love everyone, have kindness in your heart, and if God can't see my heart, I don't want to go to his heaven. And unfortunately, through my conversations with the many people I've had these conversations with, those heavens are quite different across the path of all those different people.
You know, I once had a conversation with a Thomist, an expert in St. Thomas Aquinas' thought, and I said, how do I make sense of grace, providence, and will, my free will? This is why that sitcom was called Will and Grace. It was a kind of satanic play on this question. What leads? Is it will or is it grace? And he said, think of it like a waltz. When you're in a waltz, you don't really feel always what's leading. And I think there's a great deal of truth to that. Also on this notion of faith being, something one simply must have, or faith being contrary to reason, as a lot of people incorrectly believe it is today. It seemed to me that knowledge can lead one to faith, inasmuch as
shouldn't it?
It certainly should. Inasmuch as the existence of God, I'm not saying the other stuff, but the existence of God can be known with certainty from the natural world by human reason. Then there's much more that comes after that, but the very existence of God, there are all sorts of good and persuasive arguments for it and none against it. Knowledge can lead you to faith, but then faith, actually, the lens of faith, can lead you to far greater knowledge. And to just, I suppose, have a final nod to my hobby horse, my friend Dante, this is kind of his view, that lens of faith actually leads you to far greater knowledge. And it orients your desire. The end of the poem is, I felt my will turning by the love that moves the sun and the other stars. And the notion of the stars gets to the word desire itself, because desire comes from the Latin desiderare, which refers to the stars. We await what comes from the stars. And so even that desire, is there. So there's much more to be said. If you'd rather talk about it off camera, perhaps we should. Before I let you go.
I'd love to. Let me be very clear, though, because I did just go on Daily Wire and talk as if I don't believe. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I don't think you don't believe.
What I'm saying is that I don't think it's fair to say that I know, and I also don't think it's fair in a world full of multiple different opinions on the subject for anyone to condemn anyone else that is doing their best to be the best human they can to hell.
Our Lord does not come to condemn, but to save. Some people are condemned.
But I'm not talking about God, I'm talking about people.
Yeah. But we imitate.
Particularly people.
We imitate God. And this is, again, I guess another point
And
with you that I hope for you, when I hear you talk about mentors, people that you're imitating. Obviously, all these young men are asking you for advice and things. And there are all these people in the world that we imitate, because we're mimetic creatures. We imitate each other's behavior and our patterns of speech and even our desires. And so that can be good. But, there is this notion of the imitation of Christ, that actually, if you really want to get it, if you really want to better yourself.
I'd love to, Michael.
Yes, then we're not just going to imitate other fallen creatures, but we actually want to imitate God. Now, to pull it back in our final moments to terrestrial things, I must get your opinion, because within a few moments of talking to you, it occurred to me, wait a second, there is a guy that this guy is kind of like. Not flattery, you're kind of like Trump. You weren't born with a successful business in your family, that would be a difference. But you came up in construction and real estate, and that's informed, and then you got into politics and media, a kind of politics, political media. And there are some parallels here. You're even wearing a red tie with a blue suit, very Trumpy. What's your take on the man, his chances in 2024, what his rise means for the country, present and future?
I've never been more proud of my country than when he won in 16. I don't believe he lost in 2020. I find it to be, again, I'll use the word arrogant, quite arrogant that Joe Biden could even be thought of as the Democratic nominee, because it tells me that they don't plan on having an election at all.
Yeah.
They've tried to bury him. They've tried to say that he is dangerous, when in fact, if he was president now, as he should be, I do not believe we'd be in the wars that we're involved in.
Certainly.
We need a wartime leader We need somebody to turn our country around, hold people accountable, and they need to be scared of the stick that we hold, because America is still the greatest superpower that ever was, and it is only upon us to not rot from within to save that. Anybody that wants to leave America or talk down about America can leave, but I advise them to do this. Before you leave, check the scoreboard, because we are still the GOAT. It is up to us to save it. Trump needs to win in 2024. If he doesn't, we're in a shitload of trouble.
How big's the load?
That I can say with some conviction.
Yeah. I listen.
And you know why? It is a fact. It is a tangible fact that we can all see in clear sight.
I suppose, to bring it back to the point on religion, you say, which one do I want to pick? Or, is it this? Am I going to be a Shinto? Am I going to be a Buddhist? Am I going to be a Muslim, or this? Something that would recommend Christianity, and particularly the incarnational flavors of Christianity and institutional
You're going to get
flavors.
me in so much shit, Michael.
Christianity is grounded on fact, meaning a lot of religious texts are poetry and whatever, some kind of fictional, fabulous prose, myths and things. The Gospels are journalism, basically. It's just this happened and then this happened and then this happened. The Gospel of John is a little more theological, but the Synoptics certainly are kind of just narratives of things that happened with people written within living memory. So if you like facts, that's a good way to go. Let's say, because you left on this kind of nice note, and we're still the GOAT.
Can I tell you why I think God's real?
Why?
If you look at the facts, if you watch Christianity go throughout a map, and you watch civilizations thrive and grow and develop and flourish, that is from a collective consciousness of faith in something bigger than them that created the virtues for them to act in synchronicity together in order to create something that would otherwise not have been created. That is why I believe in God.
Doesn't happen with Shintoism.
However, that does not mean that I am right or that I am all-knowing in something that I think that we all question every day.
I suspect with your intuitions, maybe not even all the things you say necessarily, but your intuitions about things, I suspect you're more right than even you believe. And I love your point on the civilizations, which is, they grow and they grow and they grow. You watch that spread and how they grow, and you can just kind of compare it.
Watch it go across a map.
Yeah. And
everywhere it shows up.
There's an important business point to this too, but it has spiritual implications, which is, in business, if you're not growing, you're dying. And you're in a personal brand, or in politics, or if you're not growing, you're dying. That's true in anything in life. If you're not growing, you're dying. And if one reaches even the fullness of natural growth, right, there's better be some other growth, or else you're dying, and we're all going to end up like worm food.
That's right.
Justin, I need to go, or I'm going to end up like worm food on the pavement of a hospital. This has been a tremendous pleasure.
I truly enjoyed it.
Thank you,
so
sir.
much.
I got to ask you before we go.
Yeah.
You can, if you tell me it's a bad cigar, we can just cut it out of the edit. What do you think?
It's wonderful.
You liked it?
I smoked too. You smoked.
You did smoke too. You're right.
I like your cigars more than you. Don't tempt me with a good time at 9 a.m.
Justin, thank you.
You've been wonderful. I've enjoyed it, truly.
Pleasure is all mine. See you next time.